Okay, 360 Speedway, still a shiny and new podcast and social media presence. We're doing our best to talk about all the discussion topics that you, our Speedway followers, your 360 Speedsters, want us to talk about. Remember, you can shape and influence our discussion agenda. Please get in touch. Just submit your comments, your suggestions of the topics that you would like us to cover below any social media output. Or, as I keep mentioning, please make use of our WhatsApp, our dedicated 360 Speedway WhatsApp, 0333 772 4046. You can send us a text form message or a voice note message, an audio message that we can play out on air. You can have your voice heard literally on next week's episode or a future episode if you're brave enough. I dare you to send us a voice note through WhatsApp. Remember to follow our YouTube channel, 360 Speedway, where there is now a healthy library of discussion topics over the previous 4 episodes. An ever-growing library, which includes long-form and some short-form video content as well. Right, let's get on with the action, gents. Let's talk, first of all, before we look forward and take on Fans Pulse number 3, I would like, if you don't mind, to have a look back to Monday night, to the British final, of course, that took place on Monday night. It's always an event that I, in particular, look forward to, and we were treated to something special, I think, on Monday night. All night long, the track prep, the quality of the racing, the competitiveness of the whole rider field was something to behold. And then, of course, the final itself was exceptional. I'm going to let you come in and just give some comments initially, and then we're going to sit back and watch the whole final, enjoy it back. So, Stuart Robson, I hope you did watch it on Monday night. What was your overarching thoughts on the British final?
I did watch it, yes. It was great. It was good, and it was the final race was just the climax too, wasn't it? It was absolutely brilliant. It was one of the best races probably that I've seen ever, especially on TV. I mean, there've been some good meetings and races on there, and that was right up there with the best of them as far as that particular race goes. There's not many races where all 4 riders are in the lead. On more than one occasion, I think. Did each rider hit the front twice?
I think they did. I think they did, Robo. Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah, there was something else. It was great. It was great to watch, and it was a good build up to it with the rest of the meeting. Few of the other riders, few of the younger riders produced some really good racing, and popped out and had couple of wins, showing what they can do. Coop he's hitting a bit of form of late. He sort of, it looks like he's coming back towards his best again. I mean, he's a long way from his best to what he was before, but he's heading in the right direction now, so that's good. And yeah, it's brilliant. It was great. We said, was it last week before, we were talking about Bellevue?
Yes.
And we said the track produces some great racing, and that was just proof of the pudding there.
Big Mac, I'll ask you to big up the replay before I press play, but there's always a rider that you feel a little bit sorry for, and for me, Dan Thompson, he scored 9 points and didn't make the cut for the semi-final, but his head should be held high.
Absolutely. Robbo's been talking about it in the last 3 weeks, and I've been keeping an eye on his scores, and he's flying. And he's been going really well. I think in sort of the last 12 months, he's matured massively. I think looking at his capabilities now, there is nobody that he should be on that track in fear. It proved that in the British final. But also, when I was sitting watching the British final, Anders Rowe, he obviously caught my eye. I think he won his first couple of races. And the racing, around the track again was just mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Like Robo says, I think there was twice that everybody in the final was in the lead. And Chris Harris, almost. Again, at his age, we talk about unsung heroes earlier, but Chris Harris at his age to be putting in the performances that he is, and he's just getting better age. He really is. But what a final, what a climax. Like Robbo says, it's probably the best race that I've seen round there. But then I've said that probably half a dozen times about other meetings. So it's just getting better and better.
Nigel, Chris Harris, 42 years of age. He's got no right to be doing those things in a British final, surely.
Well, you'd think not, but Greg Hancock were doing it, wasn't he? And Bomber, he just defies everything, doesn't he? If anybody you feel sorry for, you've got to feel sorry for Bomber, haven't you? You know, he just gives it all every time. And whoever missed out on the British final to get to the Grand Prix, you was going to feel sorry for him. But I think you feel a little bit more sorry for Bomber because just gives it everything, every race, you know, and he's just something else is Bomber. And I have to say, I don't think it was just the final race that was good. I think that's possibly one of the best British finals there's been for many a year, I would think. The whole meeting. That's not in my opinion, but I'm sure it must be one of the best ones there's been.
So it's interesting to hear you say that, Nigel. But because the reason I say that is, I think a lot of people view Speedway with rose-tinted spectacles about the olden days, right? And a lot of people have a difficulty, I think, trying to compare riders from 2, 3, 4 decades ago versus nowadays. And the default suspicion or accusation is that riders then were better. And I'm not so convinced, Nigel.
I don't know. You know, we can go down the route, can't we? Snooker, football.
Yeah.
Who knows? You don't know, dear. Everybody, Ivan Major, you know, the best man ever, they say. And I'm sure he was, because Ivan didn't ride all over the world like they do nowadays. You know, them tracks in Poland for the riders nowadays, they ride there every other week, don't they? Ivan Major in his day, he probably rode there once a year in a world final.
True.
But it's just move with the times, don't you? And as I say, you talk of the British final and absolutely superb. Just what I don't understand with it is I don't know whether I'm right or wrong here. Why on earth do they run it on a Monday night? And they'll say it's because of the riders riding in Poland on a Sunday. Run it on a Saturday night and let them get a flight out there on the Sunday morning. They've done that many a year. And I'm sure a Saturday night, the British final would be so much more successful, I'm sure.
I wouldn't disagree. Listen, James, if you're sitting comfortably, let's just sit back, relax, and enjoy another couple of minutes reliving Monday night's British final.
4 big laps here in the grand final. Takes a run. We're away. We're into the first corner. Beauty's got there. Robert Lambert coming around the outside of Harris. Harris hanging on in second place. Here comes Lambert trying to put the pressure on. Down Beauty. Beauty's gone wide. Lambert's got up the inside when he blocked past. Yes, he has. Beauty has to get out of the way. Here comes Harris. That mixes things up big time. And an advantage to Robert Lambert with Beauty at the back.
Robert Lambert really engineered that first lap. I've got a feeling he had a game plan all along and he worked it absolutely perfectly. Oh, look at the battle now between Beauty, right, Harris now following Lambert right around the outside. Beauty hits the front again.
Lambert now trying to repay the compliment. Lambert's got very, very wide as well. Beauty once again is blocked back. Harris now hits the front. Chris Harris has now come to the front. Charles right round the inside. What a race. This is incredible racing.
Oh, it got Harris again.
Round the outside, this is the final effort of the run to the line. Robert Lambert wins the British Championship. What a speedway race.
Unbelievable.
Oh my goodness gracious me.
It
does not get any better than that. That was an extraordinary race.
Can't blame him, can you?
No.
He's there to win, not make friends, as they say.
Bailey was going right round him. But wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you know when Chris Harris hit the front end on the last lap, I almost fainted. I was that away from passing out in front of my television. I honestly thought he was just going to time his charge to precision, and I suspect Chris might be a little bit annoyed with finishing off the podium, but he's got no need to, because it was a phenomenal performance by Chris. And listen, we haven't even congratulated the winner. Robert Lambert was obviously world number 2. He'd lived up to to that mantle, I guess, on Monday night, and I wouldn't suggest that Robert didn't deserve to lift his second title on Monday. One thing I'd like to just say, just before we close on the British final, you know, Manchester's going to host 2 Grand Prix back to back in just a handful of weeks, and big credit to, I haven't seen it written down or mentioned too much on social media, but huge credit to Andy Meredith and all of the track staff at Bellevue, because that was the perfect stage to endure 22 heats of Speedway. You know, the track's got to be set up and prepped to do that, and hopefully Andy just needs to rinse and repeat back to back for the Grand Prix, and we're all going to be in for something special next month.
I'm sure. Again, all depends on the weather, doesn't it? The track, how they work on the track, depends on the weather.
Back to your discussion topics, and on with Fan Pulse Lap 3. I'll get the graphic on screen shortly. And this time we're talking about another interesting subject. We previously discussed some great innovations in Speedway, and we touched on some safety aspects, helmet technology, back protection, neck braces and ear fences. You might remember that we touched on that night. But there is another sort of safety element to the sport, which purely by observation, I'm not so sure that I see in evidence very much these days compared to yesteryear, and that is the art of it by intention laying down the bike to avoid a fallen rider in front of you, or to obviously to minimise the impact against that rider. And Stewart McDonald, I'll come to you first. Absolutely, in your era, I can remember many riders. Obviously, I watched my Speedway at Glasgow. I can remember Les Collins, Steve Lawson, Mark Courtney, to name but 3, who could. Nigel even could drop the bike on a sixpence when they had to, but it's not something that I'm aware of seeing very often these days.
No, you don't, to be honest. When I started out back in the day with racing at Lithgow, I must admit that Alan Robertson was massive on it, you know, laying the bike down if anybody fell up in front of him. I mean, back then, Nigel and Rob will agree, the tracks were so deep, so tricky, tight, so, you know, you always had a follow. And one meeting in particular that I actually raced in for Edinburgh was in at Oxford. And I had fell going into the third and fourth time, and I looked behind me, and Kevin Little put the bike down and avoided me, literally from 2 metres away. Unfortunately, Kevin broke his ribs because he hit the fence. But I remember that from my young age at 16, thinking he avoided me 2 metres away at 60 miles an hour. And I think that is a skill that nowadays they don't have. You know, you look at some of the riders that fall off now and people run into, you know, they very rarely get riders' reactions the way that they were back in the 90s, 2080s, whatever you want to call it. I think that the safety aspect of it then was more prominent because of the tracks. But now, you don't see many people coming off now, so I don't know what some of the training tracks are like now, what they teach you now, but they did certainly back then. And one rider that you mentioned to me was Les Collins when I was at Edinburgh at Powder Hall, and he was another one. He could stop the bike and still stay upright. Honestly, he could do that. That's how clever he was. But it's something that I don't think that you see much of now. Definitely not.
Robbo, was that something was that a craft? Was that part of the Speedway craft that you were taught or learned or acquired in your earlier days, or any memories of being taught how to lay the bike down?
I was never taught. No, I just could naturally do it. I was quite good at falling off, unfortunately, and it showed throughout my career. But I could just do it. I don't really know. I mean, I rode bikes all my life, and I'd never had to do that. I'd never had to lay a bike down. I rode a little bit of schoolboy grass track, and I rode the schoolboy motocross for however many years before I started Speedway. But I was fortunately had a bit of control on the bike. You know, I with doing the motocross, that helped a lot. I could control the bike, and speedway bike is quite easy to ride in comparison to motocross bike. They're about 40, 50 kilo lighter, and to an adult bike that is, and they feel like there's nothing to them, and I could just do it. I don't really know how I learned how to do it. It just happened, and I used to slide off quite a lot in my younger days, and I always had the old either a hole in my left knee as I got a little bit older when I wore knee braces, but in my younger days, my youth, the hole in my leathers was in my left butt cheek, and with the big scab on my skin to go with it, and it used to hurt like hell if you ever laid it down and slid along that, and then took the scab back off again.
Oh, ouch! Nigel, what's your view? Is it? Stuart McDonald made the point, about current day training schools, and there are several of them, but I'm not sure whether the art of laying the bike down features as part of that training or that education, and if it doesn't, should it, Nigel?
I don't know whether it's an art, instinct, isn't it? Instinct. If somebody comes off it depends where you are on the track as well, don't forget. If you're two-wheeling into a corner, you're not going to be able to lay a bike down very good. When you're sliding around the corner, it's very easy to lay a bike down, very easy, and it's instinct. If somebody comes off in front of you, you're going to try and look after yourself first and foremost, aren't you? So you don't want to hit him and bounce over the top of him. And I also remember when I first started, I went to Ollie Nygren's training school. That's how many years ago it was. And Ollie Nygren, he spent a little bit, maybe, I don't know, an hour or two on it, talking to us all about this. And he'd step out in front of you.
Oh, really?
He'd step out in front of you, and you laid your bike down. Either that or you wipe the master out, if you like, the teacher out, and then you get a rate clout for it, wouldn't you? So, that's what I used to do and things like that. But it's instinct, and I'm sure if a rider falls off, even today, at the right time, and you're sliding around a corner, it's very easy to lay it down, really, I think. And if they don't, well, self-preservation comes into it to a degree, doesn't it? I'm sure. And they're not looking after themselves very well neither then. But I think it, like Robbo, like Stuart says, it's quite easy to lay a bike down. Maybe, as Robbo says, like me, I used to be able to fall off the front, so it was dead easy anyway. It was just natural.
Perhaps I'm doing riders these days an injustice. It's just something, it's just something that occurred to me as a potential discussion topic, and it was something when I stopped and thought about it. I can't necessarily remember many obvious instances or incidents where I've seen riders do it in recent meetings / recent seasons, but I just wonder whether, riders are obviously, you've got to be licensed to race a speedway bike, you've got to have the skills to get around the track safely, and that's not easy. I just wondered whether, because of the safety focus in speedway, whether it ought to be a condition that riders are tested on their ability to stop on a sixpence. Stuart McDonald.
Do you know what? I would say that'd be a good proposal. But nowadays, you ask the rider to lay his bike down as a practice.
No
not
chance.
doing it.
No
They're
chance.
not doing it. We, back 30 years ago, had old Wesley's that were like training bikes. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get anybody throwing their bike down when they've got a nice shiny NAB clutch or a lovely chain cover. It's, I don't think that would happen very as much as the guys say, with anybody can lay a speedy bike down. It's just natural instincts and reaction. Like Nigel says, Kevin Little was very, very considerate at missing me, but he broke his ribs down one side. Mm-hmm. And like Nigel said, you look after yourself, which he didn't, but he did look after me. So thanks for that, Kevin. But no, I don't think you could educate him now to do it.
I'd like to think, Stuart, as a rider on track, if you have fallen and an opponent or a teammate does what Kevin Little did for you that day. I'd like to think that as a rider you would genuinely appreciate their skills and their anticipation that they managed to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, like I say, it was natural instinct. He avoided me, but even to this day, he mentions it to me. He does. I spoke to him, I think, about 6-7 months ago. He was out last year having a skid, and he did say to me about it. Do you remember that time? I went, and great memories. But like Robbo, I had a season ticket for the hospitals in Scotland. Every Friday night or Sunday, I was in the A, and my mum was sitting there, and it was just, honestly, I mean, Robbo talks about scabs in your backside. I never had a backside after about 3 or 4 weeks of racing. It was that bad. But honestly, Robbo, I was patched after patch after patch on my leathers, and you know how heavy they are. But no, it just it's one of those things that you're either fortunate they avoid you or they don't, and that's the way it is.
Well, there you are, from the horse's mouth, from 3 guys who ought to know the answer. It's instinct, Speedway rider instinct, no need for training or tuition on the art of safely laying down the bike. And with that mental image of Stuart McDonald's backside, let's move on to Fad's Pulse Lap 4.